Let's go ahead and get into our discussion on this upcoming season, and then we will finish things out with our top 5 worst, most hated locations. We have got the Guardians' greatest hits season. It's already started, like I said, on May 1st. We'll talk about the cards here, and then we'll get into locations. So our first card, which is a featured card of the season, is Nebula, which is a 1-cost, 1-power card that gains 2 power for every turn that your opponent does not play a card at that location. It does not count the turn when Nebula is played. This is a perfect card for lockdown decks with Professor X. Anything that you can get her into and then possibly make sure that no other card is played there. Goose or Cosmo is going to limit other players playing at that lane. This is going to be a neat card to watch as it unfolds. I've already ran into her once. We're 3 days into it. So what are your thoughts, man?
I've seen her a few times. And yeah, at first I was like, I don't know how. I could see, like you said, using it with Professor X or somebody like that. And yet I've played her a few times, and I start going, wait a minute, I got to get somebody over in that lane.
Yeah.
So not only does it build her up, but that happens a couple times, and you're starting to worry about that and thinking you got to play somebody there, even if maybe you'd rather not. So yeah, it's so far from what I've seen, it's a little bit better than I thought it would be. We were talking early on about this, how a lot of the stuff, there's variants, sure, but a lot of the stuff seems geared more toward the comics than the movies. So I was a little disappointed. I like Nebula in the movies better than Nebula in the comics, but I was a little disappointed to see the non-variant version of the card was straight out of the movies. Although I think, honestly, they've got her looking like that in the comics now, too. I was kind of looking for the old classic long-haired Nebula. Of course, I'm sure we'll get that variant before long.
All right, next up was Iron Lad, a 4-cost, 6-power card that copies the text of your deck's top card. Now, I remember reading, I don't know if it was the release date or the release notes for this upcoming season, or maybe it was just something off of Reddit. I can't remember, but it sounded like they are going to be focusing a lot with cards that do stuff with your deck. I think Howard the Duck's power even has something to do with the top card of the deck, if I remember right. But yeah, what you're going to see here is you're going to see a trend of cards like Iron Lad who have abilities that affect or are impacted by something going on in your deck. So my notes here were to try and get this card out early and then pack in a few heavy hitting ability cards so that when you lay this thing down, it's going to be, you have a higher chance of copying something that you normally wouldn't see on a 4-cost, but you would see in 5 or 6, like a Doc Ock or something like that.
Yeah.
Another thing that they had listed here was like throwing in Lockjaw on the deck too, which would probably make things interesting because you would be able to lay this 4-cost power card out into Lockjaw. It uses the next reveal ability.
And isn't there also a card coming up that lets you look at the top card of your deck or something?
Right.
Is that Howard?
Yeah. Tap this to see the top card of your deck.
Oh, so yeah, Howard and Iron Lad work nicely together.
That's a weird mechanic, a weird pairing.
Hey, 4/6 by itself is nice. That thing, Hellcow.
Queen.
Yeah. Right. So that's, I guess 4/6 is a good spread for a lot of different cards you could use, and that's definitely interesting. Like you said, be able to duplicate another card. Of course, I guess you probably don't want to put Hobgoblin or Green Goblin in that deck.
No.
that will be awkward. So that's one that you're going to have to pay attention. I have some cards that are just like, well, what else am I going to throw M'Baku in there?
There's going to be a lot of decks that are built around that. Will probably be pretty formidable.
But just as important will be what you don't put in that deck.
Right.
Getting ready to play, Black Panther or somebody on top of Wong, but then Iron Lad copies Zero.
Yeah. It'd be tough.
Yeah. So no Zero, no goblins in your Iron Lad deck.
Yeah. That would not be a wise decision. All right. Next up, High Evolutionary, a 4-cost, 7-power card who unlocks the potential of all cards in your deck that don't have abilities. Now, this is definitely something that I've only read very few comics with the High Evolutionary in them, one of which being what was that, number 1 or number 2?
Number 1.
Number 1.
The superheroes lost the Evolutionary War?
Right. Yeah, that's the one that I've read the most. And there was the High Evolutionary or the Evolutionary War. Is that what it was? There was a big event that happened in the 80s.
Evolutionary War.
I think it was the late 80s, early 90s. So I don't know much about the High Evolutionary, but this seems on brand for sure.
Yeah. I got to say, though, 4 costs, 7 power, but the leader's too powerful. Sorry, I'll get over that one day. And that seems like a lot of power for. I mean, you sent me a screenshot of some of those unlocked abilities. That seems like a lot of power. I think
no kidding.
He might wind up getting bumped down.
I believe you're right.
But yeah. I was just looking where High Evolutionary would slot in, and we were talking earlier. There's a lot of good 4/6 cards. He'd be the first 4/7, but you look at at the higher cards like 4/8 Crossbones. You can only play him if you're already winning. Atuma, Sentry, and Typhoid Mary all have drawback abilities.
Drawbacks, right?
And High Evolutionary more powerful than in terms of energy than a lot of those 4/6s, and pretty much a better ability than any of them. So I that is get adjusted.
You're probably right. I found all the cards with no abilities and what their abilities would be. So Wasp, it was a 0/1. Afflict 2 random enemy cards here with -1 power. Misty Knight, when you end a turn, she's a 1/2. When you end a turn with unspent energy, give another friendly card +1 power. I'm sure that's all random. I don't think you can choose. Shocker, who's a 2/3, give the leftmost card in your hand -1 cost. Which, okay, all right. I mean, I've always wanted to use Shocker. Other than in my Patriot decks, it's very rare. Cyclops too. When you end a turn with unspent energy, afflict 2 random enemies here with -1 power. The Thing, afflict a random enemy card here with -1 power. Repeat this twice more. Then we have the Abomination, costs 1 less for each enemy card in play that's afflicted with negative power. So a lot of this is like
they build off each other.
Right. And then you have the Hulk, +2 power for each turn you ended with unspent energy. Now, that's an ongoing. So just like you said, you get him out there on turn 6, but if you can get him out there early somehow, wait him out.
It says for each turn you ended, past tense.
It does say ended.
Well, so that means it would accumulate the whole game.
It's an ongoing power though, so I don't know if that accumulates in your hand. I would think.
Look, because otherwise it wouldn't be past tense. It's like Luke Cage. He undoes reductions. He doesn't just prevent it from being reduced. He undoes reductions. So you play Luke Cage after Typhoid Mary or Scorpion has reduced things, and he undoes
true.
It.
That is very true.
I think that would. Well, you'd have to play Sunspot and then High Evolutionary and then Hulk. But let's say there's the only 3 cards you played. So you'd have one location. You'd have what? 2, 5. Sunspot would be at a 10. You'd have 7 at 1, and then the Hulk would be up to an 18.
18.
Just those 3 cards would give you 25 energy.
Wow. And then is there something else?
Wouldn't win you every game, but it'd win you some.
The powers here are pretty neat too. When you look at their actual abilities, they're on brand again. The Hulk's definitely on brand. +2 energy for each. That is all Hulk is. It's just radiation and energy, just in massive form. Yeah, I think you're right. I think this card is definitely going to get hit with a nerf at some point. You're probably right. I mean, what did they drop? I can't remember. Didn't Leader go down from a 7 to a 2?
Yeah, but it may depend on how often he gets used. Because I was surprised when they pushed Enchantress up from a 4 to a 6, but they said nobody was using her. I use her less than I have been, so that might be it too. If he doesn't get used a lot, they may not change it.
Right.
So I saw you had a note on here about whether it would work with Patriot decks because the cards would have abilities. I assume Patriot would not give them the bonus anymore, but I'd still say put High Evolutionary and Patriot in a deck together, because if you don't draw one,
right,
you can use the other. Pretty. You got multiple chances to use them. So
and then maybe we'll get some newer. Most of the cards that have been released here lately, I can't think of any new release cards that have no abilities.
I'm assuming they only have one for each cost. So the Wasp at 0, Misty Knight at 1,
point.
Shocker
right.
2, Cyclops 3, Thing 4, Abomination 5, Hulk 6.
Yeah.
And then some of the cards that get produced, like, I wonder if there's evolutions for the squirrels.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Or the Void. I mean, that's the High Evolutionary's thing. He evolves animals into people.
Right.
I mean, that's one of his things. But so the squirrels, the Demon from the Hood, the Void.
Brood.
Yeah, Brood. Sinister Clone. Huh.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. That would actually be really neat if that's the case. All right, well, moving on. We got the Living Tribunal. This is a big deal. I mean, this is a pretty big cosmic player when it comes to the Marvel Universe. The Living Tribunal is a 6-cost, 4-power card that splits power evenly among all 3 locations at the end of the game. So, yeah, I had some questions about this. I think this is probably just going to be for you and not all players. I was like, oh, is this going to be all players? Well, I don't think that's the case. This is going to be just for you.
Could be he renders judgment on everybody, so.
Okay, all right. Well, if that's the case, I mean, it's all going to come down to power, the total power that you have out there then.
It would involve more strategy if it was just for you. So you could try to figure out if splitting it evenly would be to your advantage.
The other thing was, like, does it split the power of just that one location among the 3?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you have 30 at that location, can you then just take, 10, 10, 10 to all 3 locations, or 10 to that location, and then the other 10 get added to the other 2, which that would be, my goodness, that would be huge. If you could just pile up like huge players on that one location and then it just like evens that out, you're probably going to be guaranteed to win the other 2 locations.
Use them on Nidavellir.
Oh my goodness.
Because there's 20 extra power right there if you fill it up.
I wonder, it'll be interesting to see how it'll be neat to see how this interacts with locations for sure.
Yeah, the way I read it, I'd say it splits your total power, but I don't know. I don't know that for sure.
I want to see it.
Nexus will be another interesting one.
For sure, right?
You'd split it evenly, but then you'd, like, if you had 30, you do 10, 10, 10, and then it will be 20, 10, 20.
Oh, imagine the Onslaught Iron Man Living Tribunal.
Man, yeah.
I don't think you can pull that off unless you got what's her face out there, Magic. Onslaught costing 6 and Living Tribunal costing 6.
Or Wave.
Yep. Locations. All right. First location. We only got 2 locations this season.
Mm-hmm.
The first one's going to be Deep Space, which disables the text of all cards at this location. So
that'll be interesting, especially with Quake.
Yeah.
You said.
Yeah. I think that as long as it is in the middle, then I assume that means all your reveal abilities and everything. Like if you lay anything on there's nothing there, right?
The rule is your card's ability comes before the location ability.
Okay.
So that's why you get to use your on reveal before you disappear in Death's Domain or get kicked out of Luke's Bar. So I would assume your on reveals would still work, but do they last? Like if it's a Guardian, do they keep their? I think they would. I think it's more of a threat to ongoings.
That's what it feels like to me too.
But yeah,
I don't know.
Which in that case though, okay, I see what it does. Because I was saying, well, how is it different from Nowhere, which disables ongoings? But there's plenty of cards that, like Sunspot. This would take out Sunspot's power.
Oh, that's right. There's
which doesn't get shut down by ongoing or on reveal because it's neither. I don't know how it's not an ongoing, but I guess it's only because it's triggered at certain times, so it doesn't happen every time. I don't know, but that's what this does. This is like the Nowhere, or what's the one that shuts down on or does Nowhere shut down on reveals, and Isle of Silence shuts down ongoings. So this does it to ongoings or non-goings, for let's try to get that. Drop that on your Snap Reddit and call them non-goings.
Non-goings, boomer snaps and non-goings.
So yeah, that would shut down Vision and Sunspot.
Oh. Yeah, anybody who can move.
Bucky.
Yeah. I mean, wow. That is going to be a fun location to watch.
Yeah.
To see how people, for those 3 days, the decks that are going to be used are just going to be wide and varied.
Or just a lot of on-reveal decks. I started to say Wong, but Wong would be shut down in deep space. Odin would work.
Odin would work well, right?
Because you'd want your characters to be either no ability or on reveal.
Well, the thing is that as soon as you put the on reveal down there, the on reveal would work, but then the text is wiped. So you lay Odin out, there's no text to do anything with.
But he does it first because now
he would be able to do it, but your other cards don't have the text there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. So, good point.
Yeah, I don't think
I'd still use Odin in there because it's only one location unless you get mirror dimension. So chances are you're going to have plenty on reveals. You just don't play Odin on deep space. I still think he'd be worth putting in that deck because you're probably going to have a bunch of on reveals. But you're right. His ability would do you no good in deep space.
Crazy. Can't wait to see that one in action. I was kind of hoping that that's what we would see this first week, but again, they're kind of spacing things out. So we'll probably see that. I imagine that'll be
spacing things out.
All right. Next up, last location, the Milano, where cards can only be played on turn 5. So this location pops up.
It's like the reverse Avengers Mansion.
Right. You can only play them here.
Oh man, can you imagine getting Avengers Mansion and the Milano in the same game?
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
What would happen?
You just can't play.
You can't play anything. So I put down here, it's a pretty darn exclusive spot. I'm going to see a lot of Doom and Captain Marvel and move decks that include Nightcrawler, Jeff, and Vision.
And it works, of course, the Milano is the Guardians of the Galaxy ship, and it works pretty well with the Guardians when you know exactly where they're going to play. I mean, you could play Gamora or Drax, or you could play Groot, Rocket, and Mantis.
Hold them until, as soon as the Milano shows up and that's where it's all going to happen.
Yeah.
Hold everything off until that. Yeah. And then just lay them down and you'll be getting
some Drax and Mantis.
Yeah. Be some good stuff there. Thanks a lot for joining us. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for the next installment of Snap Material.